In today's video, I'm going to show you how to combine 3 of the safest scrap generation methods to build the ultimate scrap farm for Force Wipe. With the June update, they brought the fishing system over to fish traps, making fishing for scrap a scalable system. The self-sustaining element would have been too overpowered, so instead what they did is they nerfed raw fish as bait, and so you can't really use it anymore. Fish traps are essentially just fishing rods with a 50% hit rate. This means that half the time you're going to lose your bait. Traps take around a minute to catch, plus or minus 12 seconds, and you do need to repair them with wooden cloth. Once you learn how to fish with a rod, you can get closer to a 95% catch rate, so technically rod fishing is still better. However, you can tend to many traps whereas you can only use one fishing rod at a time. This means that you get more scrap per hour if you scale up your fish traps. And the scrap rates are even better when you combine them with other methods as mentioned before, using a fishing rod as well as berry farming, which I'll explain later. To start off with, let's look at the basics for a fish trap. Fish traps can be glitched into foundations, so it's best to build them in blocks of 2x3s. This way you can fit 8 in the space of a 2x3. Rivers are better than the coast. This is because the quality of fish in rivers are higher than that in the ocean because you can't catch sharks as it's too close to the coast. If you're going to go for a very large setup, it's usually better to just go for a compound. This way you can place your fish traps anywhere. Just be careful if you're building around high terrain, as hostile players can shoot you from above. When it comes to using bait, you want to make sure that you try and have at least a 5 bait level. This is because it allows you to catch the high level fish, which we're going to be using and selling for scrap. Level 10 is obviously better, and you can also stack grubs, plants, worms, and other things in order to get the bait level higher. If you find a bear or a wolf, you want to kill it on sight, as this is a level 10 bait as well. Bears drop 19 bear meat, which means that you can get 250 scrap just from putting that bear meat into the traps, and you can increase that up to 500 if you use the fishing rod effectively. So are we supposed to just farm animals all day in order to fill up our traps? Well, no, not entirely. If you set up a simple berry farm, each stack of 5 gives a level 5 bait. This gives you a sustained supply of bait. Grubs and worms will also drop from your bushes, which is also really good bait as well. Bears and wolves are still decent to pick up, so make sure that you're killing them when you get the chance. Okay, so now that you have an endless supply of plants and fish, the setup's pretty good. However, it requires a lot of AFK farming. What I mean by this is once you pick up everything from the fish traps, you still have to be nearby them, so you have to wait around a minute. On top of that, you're also going to be losing out on a lot of level 10 bait, as half the time the fish traps are just not going to catch anything. So how do we stop wasting time and also wasting our level 10 bait? We can combine the fish traps with fishing. The reason that we want to combine it with fishing is because once you learn how to use a fishing rod effectively, you won't lose nearly as much bait as the traps. This way you can generate scrap during those 1-minute cycles when you didn't have anything else to do. You can put all of your level 10 bait onto the fishing rod, and this includes some of the level 10 bait that you'll actually catch from the traps, and then leave all the berries in the traps instead. You can do the same with grubs and stack them up to 10, as this will give you better chances of catching the higher level fish. A standard setup of 8 fish traps will go through around 40 berries. Calculated for human error, you can go through over 1,000 berries per hour. This would require 30 planters in order to get all of the berries for your farm. However, the reason that you don't need to scale the system this large is because the berries will always be growing. So what I would recommend doing is set up one block of a 2x3 and then one block of a 2x2 with the planter boxes. Then from then on, if you find yourself spending a lot of time running up and down the fish traps and running out of bait, you can simply add another block of 2x2 when it comes to the planter boxes. To summarize the cycle, you're farming berries so that you have sustainable bait, and all the berries are just going into the traps. You can of course farm hemp as well if you're running low on cloth, as you do need to be repairing these traps. And remember that the grubs and worms that you get can ideally be stacked up and put onto the fishing line, but if you have an abundance of these, then just chuck them in the fish traps. You're still actively hunting animals, and of course the wolf and the bears produce a very high level bait which would rather go on the fishing rod, but if you have an abundant source of them, you can just chuck them in the fish traps as well. As for the small fish that you catch in the fish traps, the anchovies, herrings and sardines, you can gut all of these fish and just turn them into raw fish and bones. The bones can be composted into fertilizer if you want to speed up the process of your berries, and the raw fish you can just eat after cooking it. As for the medium tier fish, you ideally want to be recycling these and putting them back out onto the line and trying to catch some of the high tier fish using them as bait. All of this will be working your way up to the catfish and the salmon, which is what's going to be getting us all of the scrap. For those who don't know, you can sell these high tier fish at your local fishing village, which is how you get the scrap in the first place. This entire setup is done a lot more effective if you build close to one. Otherwise, if you're quite far away, you might want to invest in a minicopter. If you build relatively far down the river, you can of course invest in a boat and just travel that way as well. The base design is pretty much up to you. It doesn't really matter how you build your base as long as it's out of 2x3s, this way you'll be getting an efficient floor plan. In this example, I'm going to do a 4x3, but I think you guys get the idea. To start off, it's really important that your first foundation is at the right height. In a river, this will be about halfway down into the water. You can verify that you've done this correctly by trying to place your first fish trap. Don't actually place it, just check to see that it's blue. If it is, you can go ahead and build out your floor plan. And then this is a really important step. You want to verify that you can still place your fish trap on every single foundation. In this example with the 4x3, once I'm done with that, I'm going to place my higher foundations. The reason we want to do this is so that we can upgrade it to stone and glitch this fish trap into it. Then of course you want to secure your build location by walling in your TC with a door and maybe a box to store some early game stuff. Once you've done that, you pretty much want to wall in the entire thing and upgrade it, except make sure that you leave a door to get out, as well as an extra door which we'll later use as our fishing hole. If you want to grow berries as well, make sure that you give yourself room for a jump up so you can get to the second floor, and then you can pretty much just close in the roof to the second floor as well. Once you've secured your base with 3 doors, you can start placing your fish traps. You want to clip the first one into the foundation, and then you can easily just place the other ones behind it. You should be able to fit 4 in every block of 3. Make sure that the fish traps aren't touching the outside walls, as sometimes if you place them too close to them, people will be able to loot the fish traps from the outside. Ideally you place your fishing hole attachment before you finish all of your traps, but if you've already placed some, you're going to have to demolish them in order to fit the 2x1. The extra 1x1 there to the right of the 2x1 is just so that you can put down some pumps if you want to, then just surround the whole thing with foundations. Upgrade all of the outer foundations, leaving the 2x1 and the 1x1 twig, and then you can just cover the whole thing up with stone and then demolish them, and now you have yourself a little pocket that you can fish in, as well as place some pumps. The pumps will sometimes still clash with the fish trap if you place it right up against the base, but in a 1x1 square you can still fit 3 pumps, which is more than enough for this base. Keep in mind that you want to make sure you have a jump up into the 3rd floor if you do plan on upgrading further. As I said before, the base doesn't really matter. You can completely freestyle it and tailor it towards your liking, depending on how large you want it. This video isn't really about farming berries. If you want to learn how to do that efficiently, I recommend you check out some of my other videos, but I'll give you the basic rundown. Just make sure that you have 1 light and sprinkler per 2x2. Then as for your source of water, you can either daisy chain 4 water catchers into 1 sprinkler, or you can set up 1 pump which will run into 4 different sprinklers. The switch is only there if you do care about getting the perfect water level, and you can just turn this off whenever you're not growing, because the water consumption of plants nowadays will match the output of 1 sprinkler. As for a simple setup like this, 1 solar panel facing towards the sun into a small battery will be enough power generation, and then the output of the battery can go straight into the lights and then chained all the way down into the pump if you're using that as well. Of course, if you do want to scale the system up, you are going to need some more power. And that's pretty much it. To all you farmers out there, I hope you guys have a good force wipe and use this method in order to get all the BPs you need. And for those wondering where I've been, I started working after I graduated uni and started playing competitive TFT, which doesn't really leave much time for Rust. I started picking up Rust again during my off season, so you can expect to see me making some videos here and there if I see a topic that I'm interested in. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Otherwise, come hang out with me on Discord and I can answer them there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.